Greetings. This is General of the Armies, Vincent Diaz Jr. This is a communication meant to be an addendum to this morning's communication with no real need for the CC I put on the other one. Alright. I haven't yet fully pulled this one together the way I really like to get through these things. Like I got some slides and I can just send them out over email for you to check out in PowerPoint when you don't need to show up to lecture. I was working over some terms. I have this list of points. I'm sort of on one, sort of blown up to multiple points. I want to cover this talk about our automation. I wanted to elucidate in some ways the automation is right there in front of your face, with it sort of just punching you right in the nose, telling you this is the automation in the way you might not notice because of all these hardships of language understanding with the many languages involved. So I finally seen this from Russia, but I want to start out talking about America, and I'm just almost sure this is almost on full automation when you'll see in the news and it says something like the White House says, or the Pentagon says, or the Pentagon is now, stuff like that. It's fully automated from almost, and there's almost every tell here. It's almost everything showing this. Like we just had this breakdown with the problem of people aging and wanting to pick some battles they've been preparing for a long time. They sort of jump to without going through their final preparations. With the ability of our automation, like I've been talking about being in control over, sort of having handed control off to and having it use the troops that are supposed to be under control, mine and ours, that are all mutinous, to just smash everything that makes them such a threat to us, to sort of show us this even happens with their words and such, with the White House saying there is no policy for regime change in Russia. While I've seen it from Russia also, I don't fully have this one memorized. I let that last one out like I'm a little afraid of my Nazi agenda control I'm trying to keep over these things. But then we had, and this one was nice to see because I haven't seen this from the other nations so much, the Kremlin says, around here when we don't have that many the White House says reports, we definitely also have the Pentagon says. You know, I have some data, like when they said some of these last ones during the pandemic, which made me so mad because the Pentagon is supposed to be my home and under my control as the pandemic had played out to force me into a controlled situation instead of being free-wielding over a whole planet that's supposed to be under my control by my rank of our chain in command on the whole planet. Started to have some of these reports, like the Pentagon says, it's basically saying some things like it was emptied out, or this is really just the Pentagon alone. And it sort of went through this process where we had some reports like the Pentagon is saying things. It sounds like it's almost on full automation. There's some pointers like maybe no one's even there for the most part, or at least not down in the levels where they're fully automated. And then it sort of gets stormed by these mutinous monsters. Like the Pentagon says something like some Marines have tried to log in and the Pentagon says they don't get to. Something like that. So I'm trying to figure out right now, I'm just trying to elucidate, so these world leaders I address, especially the ones who work for me and we work together, that I work for as the code calls for, no matter what, even in times of being set against each other, can use. So it can be their work. We can be in control of this. And of course, I'm trying to figure some stuff out, like giving orders to get orders, to put my life in order, to stop this out of order way of life these military enemies of ours are creating for us all, with it clearly being fully prototyped and specified out in production with what they've done to me. Such that I guess this is an interesting round. I'd be interested to see something like what I was calling for earlier. This is how my work usually works. Like, I wanted Vladimir Putin, as I'm almost trying to order him to say some stuff about what he's going to do back to us, or maybe what the book calls for. It's just he has a lot of say-so when the book calls for bigger ideas than the specific statements of using its stuff to get it done, in a way that we can maybe have him dial some stuff up so his statement can say the Kremlin says, instead of what's going on with the news where it's Putin says. Well, at the same time, I like to issue the same order, although I have to watch out for this Nazi Yahtzee. Like, I really have absolutely no control or power or linkage in the chain of command to give orders in what used to be the USA, where I'm stuck embattled, to get the Biden administration, that's about the Nazi Yahtzee, I'm afraid, with this Nazi agenda I'm trying to control, to do about the same thing. Like, they can dial up a statement from the White House so that the White House says the nuclear option, as we'd always been working for, is applied to this Russia situation over the war in the Ukraine, says the following cities are now alerted to the possibility of, without course changing, the following strikes. So I sort of wish it could go this way. There's absolutely no way it's going to go this way. Like, I can pretend to be an American as my messed up identification protocol stuff has falsely embedded in it, while it really sort of screams that it's a legal to use identifying document that has erroneous data on it. Maybe we can figure this out with the other side, because our side is actually no longer even really a side the way we usually like to talk about this. Let me mark up this talk about how I have to talk about the axis of evil through this also. I order for all chain of commands, short of being order able for God, which is basically where the chain of command links up to be linked to something or chained to something that isn't just a chain in the chain of command. I order this automation to get me these orders I keep fighting for to stop this atrocity of the breaking of justice code, such that the penalties are so great over what the behavior is to stop my life from being in order, that it absolutely fully demands, without many conditions of grace, that the species responsible for it has to cease to exist. All right. I think I'm going to try to close out with a Stalin story. I'm trying to do this pop media thing. Like, I don't know if my media actually counts as the sort of pop culture that's popular, the way it's accepted by society. While it's definitely in use, like, it's sort of viral by most measures, making it pop culture, not necessarily popular, like the people of the culture are supposed to behave in different ways when it's popular, right? With this story about Stalin, which I'm trying to make popular with the world's population, we've tried so hard, like with all this Stan Lee work I've talked about. So the next time we have to be in this situation, I think it's controlled by treaties such that this doesn't happen until it's a world war. We have these superheroes out that are not the same species as the rest of the forces, and it's perfectly clear, mostly by their size, because they're much larger, and absolutely by their abilities, as the normal, or basically any human, in no way has any capability whatsoever of ever having the abilities of these people or doing the work they do, short of evolution, which is a debate. Like, they're never going to do it. They evolve and mutate. So anyway, here's my next Stalin story. Maybe I can try to work this over a little bit better for the good keeping of Russia and communism, because it's a story about them, which I'm not going to do so well today, but I'm going to try to start calling Stalin, rank, and the people who have built it superheroes in the way they're supposed to be popular, like Stan Lee characters. I'm trying to get back to some of my memories, like I've actually had in-person meetings with a Stalin, or these ranks above mine and these superheroes. And I absolutely remember this one. This one is fried in hard, and it's where I managed to pick up trying to put together my timeline, getting further back than my erroneous documents say I've even been alive. And we used to have this issue where our mills and facilities and heavy industry plants would break down, and you'd have to go up top like they were going to grow up, and even grow up through the artifacts around them, like yard work and such, with their features, like popping up and sort of growing like a plant. It's a tree or so. And we used to have this issue almost every day, where I'm trying to remember if it's by field day, around the TVs, that were supposed to be a communication protocol, sort of like Zoom, only and always running for you. And our equipment in our facility having been broken down, at least out of the state of function, like the equipment might still be functional, such that our communications equipment was mostly wasted. And it would pop up in our mill yards, which they might have been calling our fields for field day, which was being linked to the education system, not necessarily yet being called school. And in my earliest memories, that are a little bit jumbled because it's changed up, we had Stalin, maybe a bunch of Stalins, I'm talking about the higher ranks that have basically created this and designed it, trying to communicate to us through some TVs he had on some kiosk-like sort of pedestals. This is sort of like the Demolition Man setup, where he actually wanted them to rotate on their base so he could sort of look at you through the TV, but not necessarily move up and down, because there's not much need for that when this goes right. And he keeps having this really hard time, where in the history, just based on the talk, like I haven't really looked this one up, he sort of turns out to be this like robot of automation, and they say it's an AI computer program trying to talk to us, when it's really all these Stalins or Stalin on the communications line trying to TV communicate through to us with his abilities. By the way, the communication is broken down, doing some strange things they had started to try to put in the context of it being AI and robots. Like, he keeps trying to start his communique, and I was hearing these keep building up into files, with it sort of breaking down like the way I have to pause these, and you might notice it sort of jumping back with me in a different position, and him and his abilities doing it like it's going really fast in a strange way, where you just sort of hear him going something like trying to get through a message, with them all being broken down and him having to restart them, with me basically being the only one who could get out there and actually get communication to happen, because I had no concern while trying to communicate of trying to stop it for some ill will purpose of not letting AI do this. So I was able to have communications. Anyway, this turned out to him sort of being labeled as Coca-Cola Joe and getting some messages through. And also, he was definitely digitally edited. But these are some of my first meetings after the creation of the rank Stalin, with Stalin and the Stalins of the rank Stalin. And I don't really have many messages. I don't remember them too much. This is just the basics, making a communication link. And usually it's working out to him trying to explain to me what is really going on here and hold my mind together. My mind is broken apart, like his communications were broken apart. With me maybe having my memory stored up with what the liars told me that wrecked the communications, who took me out there to as boss to clean up the situation.